Hello to all our viewers, it's Dylan. Sorry for the lack of uploads lately, it's been a busy period, but Xavier and I are happy to get these videos out to you again. Today's video is a little bit different. For those of you who don't know, I've always aspired to be a commentator and a broadcaster, so I had the wonderful opportunity to interview the one and only Sandy Roberts, who is a commentator for Channel 7 and Foxtel for the best part of 46 years. Make sure to like and subscribe, and in the coming weeks I'll have another interview with a commentator who is currently working for Channel 7 as well. So I hope you enjoy, and I'll see you later. Today I'm joined by the one and only Sandy Roberts. Sandy has graced our screens and radios for the best part of 46 years. Being the sports icon for Channel 7 and Foxtel, Sandy has called over 1,100 VFL and AFL games, 19 VFL and AFL Grand Finals, 8 Summer Olympics, 3 Winter Olympics, 25 years of Australian Open tennis, 25 years of Australian golf, including British and US Opens, the NBL and the Spring Racing Carnival. I'm honoured to be sitting alongside him today. Sandy, that's a fair resume. You have to be pleased with your journey.
Well, it was a long time, Dylan. As you said, almost 46 years, but it was fantastic just to be a part of sport. If you can't play it at the highest level, the next best thing is being behind the microphone, watching it and telling everyone else about it.
So let's rewind. You began your career in South Australia as a copy boy. How on earth does a copy boy become an AFL commentary sensation?
Well, a copy boy, Dylan, for your information, is the lowest in the order at a newspaper. You get the senior journalists cups of tea and you deliver them their papers and things like that. So it's a pretty lowly start. But I was always keen on words, and as a copy boy we did have the opportunity of being able to submit stories to the paper. So that's really how it started. But then after some time, approximately a year, Rupert Murdoch decided that he didn't want to have copy boys anymore. So that left me out of a job. So that's when I decided to go to Perth and stepped into radio as a newscaster and journalist, and just grew from there.
What radio was the start?
It was called 6 PM The Pleasure Machine.
Was it a wide audience or?
It was a popular station. It was a music-oriented station, and I was in the newsroom at that stage. And do you know who was broadcasting the afternoon session on that station?
I do not. I'd love to know that.
Centimetre Perfect, Dennis Cometti.
Hey, you sound like him as well. Good interpretation. At what stage did you realise you were looking for an end career in broadcasting and journalism?
Well, I sort of went from radio to television, and the television was in the form of BCV8 in Bendigo, where once again you start as a general announcer, so you're doing everything. After a year I went to Adelaide and joined Channel 7 in Adelaide, and at that stage Channel 7 in Adelaide wasn't closely linked to the other 7s around Australia. They were like a cousin, not today like they are a brother. So it was a little different. But I had the chance there in Adelaide of being asked to call football, which I'd never done in my life. Yeah. And so I started with the reserves and then went up to the seniors. And also at that time, I was asked by Channel 7 in Melbourne if I would like to go to the 1980 Moscow Olympics, which I jumped at. And it was while I was over there that the management of 7 in Melbourne asked me if I'd like to come to Melbourne. And of course, leaving football in South Australia, where quite often you'd see the full-back having to jump the fence to get the ball after a point has been scored because there's no one watching, to the MCG and 100,000 people. Why wouldn't I go?
Turn around, yeah.
Yeah.
Was there anyone in particular who you idolised growing up in the industry?
Yeah, and as far as broadcasters are concerned, not necessarily football commentators at the moment, broadcasters, I always thought one of the most polished and versatile broadcasters was the late Bill Collins, who was ostensibly a race caller. Yeah. But he went to Moscow, called track and field. Just a lovely, lovely man, total professional. So he was quite an influence on me, and the callers of football in those days were Ted Whitten, Butch Gale and Mike Williamson. And if you look at those three, Dylan, their style is all pretty similar. I would almost describe them as cowboys. But they loved the game. They loved the game, but you could tell they were enjoying themselves and having a good time. And I think that's real. I've always thought that being really important. It is, after all, only a game.
Yeah.
So, and it's entertainment, and people want to be entertained.
You can lift that extra step in
Yeah.
close games.
Yeah, my word. Start low in the back line and build as Michael Long runs through the centre, 50 metres out, 30 metres out. Was it touched on the line? No, Silvani.
I did see a replay of that and I was convinced it was touched on the line.
No, well, Sauce is still convinced it was touched. But no, I don't think so.
So you've obviously been quite versatile with commentary. You've commentated on radio and television. Was there a particular style you preferred? Natural viewing with binoculars or off the monitor?
Neither. I never used binoculars, never at all. And I prefer just to go and look at the ground, because I can then see, as distinct from looking at a monitor, what's happening downfield, who's doing what to whom. Whereas if you're tunnel vision with the monitor, it makes it a little more difficult.
Can't see the leads.
No, and that's why, particularly this year, the guys have had to call in the studio off a monitor, and you lose so much. So, and they are very different, radio and television. If you're a call on radio, and you give the score, who's got the ball, and where the ball is,
They can fill in the gaps.
that's it. That's it. You're done. You know, that's what people in the car or sitting at home listening to the radio want to know. The score, who's got the ball, and where it is. Whereas in television, you can see who's got the ball. You can see pretty much where it is. So you've got to change your call to make that picture look a little more interesting.
And did you prefer radio or TV? Because radio, I guess you have to create the picture, whereas TV, it's a bit more simplistic, but at the same time, hard to fill in those gaps.
I loved radio because, well, you'll think there's strange reasons, but you didn't have to wear a suit or put makeup on or anything like that. And television, there are now so many experts in every lounge room in the country that you can't afford to make a mistake. You can't say kangaroos go forward through Jimmy Cracker and it's Phil Cracker. You know, whereas if you're on radio, they're not going to know if you made a mistake. So that being the case, I think television is probably more challenging, but radio is more fun because for some reason it's the immediacy or something like that. I enjoy radio.
How do you think your commentary style developed over time?
I think, like everyone, it takes each person time to work out their style. Everyone's different, and everyone has probably a different view of the game. And because I love the game and I love seeing the best players and calling the best players. You know, that's it for me. And I think it takes time and it takes confidence. You know, you start off and you're nervous. You know, I came over here and I was thrown into a commentary box at Arden Street with a triple Brownlow medalist, Bob Skilton, and I had to call the game. So it was, you know, so you just make sure you hopefully know who the players are and everything, and you can get through the game. But once you've done it, you know, so it took me 9 years to call a grand final. So that's 9 years of basically prep to get to that level. You know, you can't do it overnight.
Great experience though with Bobby Skilton.
Oh yeah, yeah, he's a wonderful man.
And as I listed before, you've commentated many and many sports. What was your most favourite to call?
Look, quite often, Dylan, the things you remember most are the things you do for the first time. Now, I'm not a Collingwood supporter, far from it. But the 1990 Grand Final was my first one calling it. I'd hosted the 9 prior to that. And so I remember that, and it was fitting that Mullane finished with the ball and he threw it up in the air, and Shaw was the Norm Smith medalist and was inspirational. And then, of course, sadly, Mullane passed away in that accident. But yes, I remember that. I remember this is not a call as such, but when we flew to Moscow, you wouldn't have been born, but there was a lot of political upheaval going on. And the Prime Minister of the time here gave all athletes and the 7 network, because we were the host broadcaster, the option of going or not going. If you didn't go, it wasn't held against you. And normally we'd take between 200 and 350 people to an Olympic Games, Channel 7. We took, I think, 53. So it was very, very different. And we had as our head man a great broadcaster by the name of Ron Casey. And he led us. Well, so I got on the plane and I was sitting in probably seat 176F. Ron would have been up at 2B, but I will never ever forget that he was a short man, very stout. I'll never forget, he came all the way down and he put his hand on my shoulder and he said, "Just want to welcome you to the team, have a great games." And I thought, you know, what a wonderful thing to do to someone who was a greenhorn like me. So Moscow is very memorable as well.
And the 2000 Olympics as well?
Oh, definitely, yeah. I mean, there's a lot. I saw Curtis Strange win back-to-back US Opens. At the playoff of the British Open at Royal Troon, we had Greg Norman in the playoff with Mark Calcavecchia. There was another one too, Wayne Grady, and Calcavecchia won it. So that was tragic because we were doing that live. So they're the sort of things, Dylan, you never forget.
I can recall a few of the historical moments you've called, one being the Michael Long goal, as we just spoke about. What are some other, or even the Michael Long, but out of all of them together, what have been your favourite moments to call?
I said to you, I love seeing the best players. Now, there's one bloke, I would say, you'd go to the game not to watch his team, but to watch him.
His solo.
Gary Ablett Sr., who was a brute of a man, so strong, so fast and so talented. And I called a goal of his, it was wet conditions, and I think I said, Gary Ablett's a light, here is the magician at work. He shoots towards goal, what more can you say? And I took a punt that he was going to kick the goal, and I would have looked an idiot if it was a behind after I'd said, what more can you say? But sometimes things like that just happen to work out. Another one who I loved watching, and he virtually won the Eagles a grand final, was Peter Matera. Brilliant wingman, and I think in that grand final he kicked 4 or 5 goals. He was just absolute delight to watch. So, and the other thing I really enjoy, I love seeing someone come into the game and grow. I was reporting at Channel 7 in Adelaide in 1976 when this big blonde Queenslander was hitting the ball at the South Australian Open, a country mile, and he won it. It was his first tournament win, and his name was Greg Norman. And to see the way his career blossomed was just fantastic.
We'll quickly go back to Gary Ablett, because in 1994, I believe he kicked a goal after the Siren in the preliminary final, and in that same final series, you called Billy Brownless's goal.
That Billy.
One of the more memorable moments.
Yeah, well, actually, there's two there. I think the Ablett one they were playing North Melbourne, and Mickey Martin had done a fantastic job on Gary.
Yeah.
Hadn't kicked a goal. Anyway, the scrubber of a kick came into him, and with luck, Ablett was in the right position at the right time, marked and kicked the goal. Billy was different because Billy's was after the Siren, and he's dined out on this for years now. And I think it was, well, he had to kick the goal for them to win the game, and I think I said, Billy, you are king of Geelong. And he loves that. So, yeah, they're great moments. I mean, they're great moments for me. Imagine how great they are for the player. Look at, who was the guy kicked the goal for Carlton, former Saint, after the Siren? Should have got goal of the year. I'll think of
Jack
it.
Newnes.
Jack Newnes. Yeah. Why that didn't get goal of the year is beyond me. There's no greater pressure.
And the angle as well.
The angle, the Siren's gone.
The wet.
They're trailing and it's wet. Nice equation. But I love the call of James Brayshaw in that, because as he was coming in, he simply said, every schoolboy's dream. And so it would be. Every schoolboy that played footy would dream of slotting that.
From the most impossible angle, which I thought Robbie Gray's was until I saw that. And I liked Anthony Hudson's call on Robbie Gray. As well.
Well, the other one, Dom Sheed, in the grand
final.
final. Pressure kick.
Now, when we last met, I was in grade 6, a long time ago. You gave me the timely advice to practice my commentating in an unused box or a stand high up in the stadium. But with COVID around, I'm unable to do that. My lounge room is my box and my family is my crowd. Is there any advice you can give me as the crowd is becoming a bit stale?
Well, are they harsh critics, your parents?
Sometimes, I would say, on a rare occasion.
I know. No, look, it's up to you. I mean, you could just go and sit in your room and watch a game, and even if you're not saying it out aloud, you're just watching, you know. Bairstow goes to Ablett, Ablett goes to Brownless, Brownless gives it a, you know, that, because you're not necessarily developing your call there, but you're developing a style and you're learning players and positions and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so it's all got to be rolled in. But the only thing I'd say, Dylan, is just keep practicing. And if you, you know, if they're televising a reserves game, watch that. Try and call it, you know, because you find yourself in all sorts of different situations, and the only way you're going to get really good is just practice.
Practice makes perfect.
Yeah, and if you, to my viewpoint, enjoy the game, you love the game, so you're on the way. You know, if you have a passion for the game, work on that.
And speaking of practice or preparation, what preparation did you take for a game or even a season?
Well, it changed as the years went by, because when I first started, I was frantic. I was just trying to get as much as I possibly could, and you know, tried to learn as much as I could, because I was thrown in Adelaide. I hadn't seen the football. I didn't know any of the umpires. I knew nothing. So it was an interesting lesson, but Channel 7 had a bit of a habit of throwing you in the deep end and just seeing if you could swim. My advice, is just work out how you want to call, you know, and don't be stereotyped or boring with stats all the time, or, you know, I can't reiterate enough, the game is entertainment. Now, you're the ringmaster of the circus, so entertain.
A bit of a trip down memory lane now, Sandy. included a bit of a comedic question. In one of your earlier gigs,
I think I know where you're
I
going.
believe it was 1981, you had the role of introducing...
No, it was 1983.
1983. You had
If
the
that's
role
what you're going to introduce.
of introducing Miss Australia by a name of Leanne Dick.
Yes, I did.
Do you recall the reaction when you returned home that night, and as well as what you said?
Well, I inadvertently called her Leanne Cock, and I looked at her and her face was stone, and I thought, oh no. But what people don't realise is, because it was at the races, I was in the mountain yard, and you know as well as I do, we all have leads and lapel microphones, so there are wires going everywhere. So the general manager of the television station, who was originally an announcer, was probably 15 feet away with another microphone so that he could take over if anything happened to my mic or anything like that. So I'd set it, and so I looked over at him to take over, and he was bent over crying with laughter because he could hear it in his earphone as well, so I got no help from him. And no, the response was unbelievable. People came off their tractors and came into the town that night, and people I'd gone to school with, and then the program manager at Channel 7 had calls from America and Britain in their funniest home videos and all this sort of thing. So it went all over the place. So, but she is a lovely girl, and she got it back when she sent me a birthday greeting a few years ago, a video, and she said, well, hello, Randy. I mean Sandy. So, but she's a really nice person.
And I don't know whether you know this or not, but you may have foreshadowed. Ironically, she married someone with the last name of Cockerell.
I know. Yes.
So maybe you're just predicting the future.
Oh, I'm just ahead of my time.
So we'll move away from the comedic side of things.
Good.
A bit more serious. For all of us who have struggled with the pandemic as of late, what part has sport played in maintaining a positive attitude?
Well, I think if it wasn't for sport, we would be in a far darker place, particularly in Victoria. We were very fortunate that the dominant sport is football, and we were able somehow to get through the season, and one of the reasons we could was by virtually having footy on our screens 4 or 5 or 6 nights a week. So for people like us, it was heaven. And I would imagine for a lot of people, it was a saviour. So it was hugely important. I just can't imagine how we would have got through without it.
It was good for the blossoming of the Saints as well, just from my point of view.
That was very nice to see, yes. They won a final, which was good. Next year, let's hope they can win 2.
Let's hope so. Maybe 3 or 4.
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
2016.
4 would be the ultimate.
Bulldogs. What positive influence does commentating and broadcasting offer to the sports industry as a whole?
Well, I think, look, the public are they're very intelligent, and they know if someone's genuine, if they love their sport, you know, if they're natural. It comes through, and I think, you know, people, that's why you have so many of these things, you know, who's your favourite caller or who's your favourite special comments person, and that tells me that they play a really important part, because to the viewing public, the commentators and callers are part of the game, like the players. So, you know, you get someone that'll bag us or whatever every now and again, and, you know, they bag players as well, so, and umpires.
Yeah.
So, but no, I think it's very important.
Do you believe that there is further scope for Australian commentating and broadcasting to grow internationally?
Look, I don't think there's, well, not from Australian rules. No, I don't think so. But if you're talking generically, I think there are a couple of options. Olympic Games can help, or international sporting events, Australian Open tennis, international golf events like British Open, US Masters, things like that. But I think it's very difficult because Australian rules football, it's our game. It's not played anywhere else, and why we go and play it in London and these places is beyond me, because it's just a waste of money. So no, I don't really think. But there's enough. That having said that, there's still enough very good broadcasters in Australia.
I do think Mason Cox is a good advertisement for the game, though, for America, because
Yes.
they have started competitions over there.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. If he could only put a few more good games together.
The qualifying final, also the elimination final, was great to watch, though.
Yeah. One quarter, wasn't it? But anyway,
Qualifying quarter.
yeah. But no, he was enormous, and that can only help promote the game in America. And of course, the other thing is, I suppose, the more Australians that finish up living in America or England, and with the media now, they can just turn on their television over there and watch it. So, the world's getting smaller every day.
The final question of our, I guess you could say, 5-year reunion.
Yes.
Sandy, is there any possibility of return to TV, or are you quite comfortable in retirement?
Do I look comfortable at the moment, do I?
Very comfortable.
Yeah, no, I'm very happy. I think it was time to hand over the baton and give some younger people a crack. So no, I'm very, very content.
Well, thank you for your time, Sandy. Once again, helpful and great to interview. You're not too controversial, I guess you could say.
No.
I would handshake you, but...
I know, it's this time of the decade that we're in, but good to chat to you again. We might do it in another 5 and I'll see how you're going.
Alright, that sounds good to me. Anyways, that's the end of the interview and I'll cut it off there.
Beautiful.